I can't believe I am saying it, but 2023 has finally arrived, and with this year, what's come with it is end of a brutal year for most of the investors as 2022 has ended. Ending one ridiculously high stock market prices, essentially a 13-year bull market up to 2022. Running into the highest inflation increase of 9.1%, the biggest yearly increase since 1981. And there the economy has more debt than ever before, after a pandemic. Just everywhere we look, bad news. And it can be tough to know what to do with our money. What do we invest in? One person that we all like to go to when trying to answer this question is a man called Warren Buffett, known as one of the greatest investors of all time. What's he investing in this year, in these pretty crazy times? So Buffett's largest position by a country mile is a very, very well-known company. I'm sure you've heard of it, Apple. And by the way, when I say Buffett, I mean Berkshire Hathaway, the investment company that he manages and has his net worth in. So Buffett, he owns 894 million shares in Apple, which makes up 42% of his stock portfolio. And just to be clear, we're going to start with his publicly traded stock portfolio. Okay, so the total value that he owns in Apple is $123 billion. That is one heck of a position. That's 4 times larger than his next biggest holding. And Buffett first started buying Apple way back in May 2016. He has added up to 4 million more shares in his portfolio from the start of 2022 to 2022 third quarter 13F filings. From start of 2022 to its end, Apple has lost around 25% of its value, but Warren loves this product and has not sold a single share during this year. Second largest stock position belongs to the second largest bank in America, which is Bank of America. So Warren Buffett, he holds $30 billion of Bank of America stock, worth 10% of the overall portfolio. The stock is traded under the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol BAC. If you want to look at buying, so Buffett bought Bank of America through the exercise of a warrant which had a strike price of 7.14. He then also increased his stake by 30% in the third quarter of 2018. At a price of around $30, so at this moment he is barely above cost, as Bank of America lost around 30% of its value in this year. Buffett also decreased his holdings from around 13% of his portfolio in Bank of America to 10% in 2022. Bank of America revenue for the quarter ending September 30, 2022 was $30.358 billion, at 26.45% increase year over year. Now we look today at the stock price. It's $34.41 a share, so Buffett has made some profit. Now the PE ratio of 10.89, low compared to others in current market, and they do pay a bit of a dividend with a yield of 2.56%. Chevron Corporation, the multinational energy giant company, it comes in at number 3 for Buffett's portfolio that he manages. The value is $23.70. He owns 165 million shares worth $176 of the total portfolio. The stock itself is a very new in Buffett's portfolio, good dividends yield of 3.22% at current price. But Buffett started adding to his position from the end of 2021 and has gradually increased his stake to 8% of his total portfolio. It has fairly low PE ratio in this market of 10.1, and if we look at the performance of Chevron Corporation during 2022, it has given a spectacular return of around 42% during 2022. Now, we're moving on to Coca-Cola, one of Buffett's favorite investments, and I remember watching an interview where he said he would never sell Coca-Cola stock. Makes up 7.6% of the stock portfolio, worth $22.4 billion, and Buffett bought into the stock way back in 1988. And this means that through the stock he owns big-name beverages brands such as Fanta, Sprites, Smartwater, and a range of other billion-dollar brands. This next stock even further shows you how into the finance sector is Buffett. American Express, the credit card service company, it comes in at number 5 for Buffett's portfolio that he manages. The value is $20.4 billion. He owns 151 million shares worth 6.9% of the total portfolio. Buffett has gradually decreased his stake in American Express during 2022. It has fairly low P/E ratio in this market of 15.1. It's got a bit of a dividend yield as well, 1.39%. The next big holding that Buffett has is that he owns $11.9 billion in Occidental Petroleum stock, another one from energy sector which he started buying from Q1 of 2022, and this comes at his 6th largest position worth 4% of the portfolio. During 2022, giant energy corporations have been churning out massive profits. It is actually a very low P/E ratio of 5.8 and gives a dividend yield of 0.81% at current price of $63.75, which has increased by a massive 90% during 2022. According to his longtime partner, Charlie Munger, push into energy comes as they are looking into stable flow of incomes from the energy sector. Next up is Kraft Heinz, which many people consider this a value play still with its crash in price over the 5 years, but has gained up to 15% during the year 2022. It's got a low market cap. It's got a modest dividend yield of 3.6%, but a high P/E ratio of 43.22. So, Warren Buffett's 3rd and 6th largest position are in energy sector and 3 financial stocks in Moody's, Bank of America and American Express, so that means that 3 out of his top 10 largest stocks are banks or financial services companies. So coming in at 8th is Moody's, the finance company, worth $6 billion at 2% of the portfolio, which has around 0.97% of dividend yield but has lost around 25% during 2022 and is currently priced at $289.70. Coming in the 9th largest is its investment in Activision Blizzard, the company that is behind games like Call of Duty. Berkshire Hathaway has increased and recently decreased its stake in Activision Blizzard in a merger arbitrage play, betting that Microsoft's proposed acquisition of the video game company will close. Berkshire now owns about 8% of Activision shares worth $4.7 billion at 1.5% of the total portfolio. The 10th largest stock is Taiwan Semiconductor, which he added during Q3 of 2022, worth about $4.1 billion, which is around 1.4% of the total portfolio. They are leading manufacturers of semiconductors in the world. This sector is very lucrative and is predicted to grow in the coming years. So, this rounds out his top 10 investments. Buffett made a big push into the energy sector during the year 2022, which he views as stable dividend-paying sector. Berkshire also invested in technology companies more in 2022 as investment in TSMC and Activision Blizzard, which Buffett says were bought by his investment managers, who can invest on their own. So during 2022, Berkshire also decreased his stake in some of notable companies like Bank of America, American Express, Verizon Communications, General Motors respectively. The rest of the stocks that he owns are all worth less than 1% each. I'm not going to show you all of those very small, slightly insignificant positions, but some of the ones that stand out as interesting small positions that Buffett holds. We got Amazon, the giant e-commerce company, which has seen some significant downtrend during 2022, having lost nearly 50% of its value. Berkshire also bought Liberty Media Corporation, which is a very different investment than Buffett normally goes, which is the parent company of the Atlanta Braves and Formula One. Berkshire Hathaway increased its stake in the $1.60 billion deal and now owns nearly 20% of Liberty SiriusXM Group. Kroger is another one of the smaller positions that Buffett holds. Again, it proves how much he likes retail and food companies. Then Visa, another small position worth 0.7% of the portfolio. Remember, Buffett's largest position is Apple, a technology stock, so that's where this large percentage fits into place. He now has invested around 50% of his investments in technology through Apple, Activision Blizzard, TSMC, and other. The second largest sector is the financial services, one at 22%, and we've talked about most of the financial stocks that Buffett owns, but he has been reducing his stake in this sector as his overall investment has come down from 31.7% to about 22% in 2022. Much the third largest sector is the stable energy sector, through his investment in Chevron and Occidental Petroleum. Around 15% of his total portfolio is invested in this sector, and Buffett has mentioned that he is in the long game in this sector. He also invests about 10% of his portfolio in food and beverage companies like CocaCola, Kraft Heinz, Kroger, etc. So, what can we learn from this? It's that Buffett, he buys what he understands food, he understands consumers, and he understands that side of the market, he understands energy, and he understands the ins and outs of financial services. He understands Apple stock, which is essentially a consumer-oriented business. He sticks to what he knows, and we should too. If we understand technology and the internet, look at the stocks in those sectors. If you understand cars well, look at stocks like Ford or Tesla or Toyota, etc. If you're into beauty and cosmetics, well, what are the companies that dominate and are growing in this sector? The lesson that we can learn from Buffett is to invest in the areas that we know and like. So, what I've just shown you is his publicly held stocks that he legally has to disclose. However, we have to realize that Buffett owns a lot of businesses privately as well. For example, the insurance company Geico, Berkshire Hathaway Assurance. Berkshire's clothing businesses include manufacturers and distributors of a variety of clothing and footwear. Businesses engaged in the manufacture and distribution of clothing include Union Underwear Corporation, Fruit of the Loom, Garan, Russell Corporation, and Fechheimer Brothers. The home furnishings businesses are Homemakers Furniture, 69, Nebraska Furniture Mart, Jordan's Furniture Incorporated, R.C. Wiley Home Furnishings, and Star Furniture Company. Court Business Services Corporation was acquired in 2000 by an 80.1% owned subsidiary of Berkshire and is the leading national provider of rental furniture, accessories, and related services in the rent-to-rent segment of the furniture rental industry. Buffett owns 100% of the Sweden companies, See's Candy and Dairy Queen. He owns 100% and 99% of Nebraska Furniture Mart. He owns 80% of BNSF Railway Company. He acquired outright for $34 billion. Duracell, the battery company, he owns as well. So Buffett's portfolio is mixed between both private companies and publicly traded companies. And generally, as we saw, it's the simple companies that Buffett likes to own: the food companies, the railway, the furniture stores, the batteries, the ones whose businesses model he can understand easily. Another important thing that I want to show you is how Buffett is balanced between cash and stock. So, altogether, between both his publicly traded stocks and his privately owned businesses, he has $320 billion invested. Then if we look at the cash that he has allotted, comes up to $149 billion in cash and cash equivalents, and by the way, most of that is in short-term treasury bills, so that means that around 30% of his entire portfolio is cash and the other 70% is businesses. That is quite a high cash percentage, especially for Buffett. He generally prefers to buy stocks than hold on to cash, which doesn't really grow. It just gets eaten out by inflation. But in this market, with things being so pricey, He's struggling to find those value investments to buy, so he's playing the game safely, and that is what Buffett owns. In going into 2023, a lot of into technology and a lot of consumer stocks. He's investing through publicly traded companies and privately held companies. When it came to market performance and investment returns in 2022, there was one clear, dominant force driving the markets: inflation. Inflation surged to 40-year highs, led the Fed to an unprecedented series of interest rate increases, cratering the bond market and sending stocks into a bear market that continued into the end of the year. But by the end of 2022, relief over a potential slowing in Federal Reserve interest rate increases was replaced by concerns that the economy was both currently too strong to allow inflation to come down significantly and, at the same time, that a recession looks increasingly likely next year.